Gris is a game that was published through Devolver Digital and is also the first debut title by Nomada Studios, which was co-founded by Adrian Cuevas, who is a senior programmer at Ubisoft, along with Roger Mendoza, who is a senior gameplay programmer at Ubisoft as well. Today we're going to be rocking out with the PlayStation 5 version, so let's get into it. The story of this title is somewhat abstract. I can tell you what happens, however, just like a picture, it's up to the viewer to create their own interpretation of what it means to them. In the beginning, you see this girl who has seemingly lost her voice. Due to this event, the statue, which could serve as a physical representation of her emotional state, shatters. So in this case, it would be safe to assume that, well, she's broken up due to the loss of something precious to her. So now, she's on a journey to become whole again by restoring what was lost. Gris would be considered one of those games that playing it would be like playing a piece of art inside of a prestigious museum, with various emotions being triggered by not only the way the themed colors are applied to the environment, but also what is conveyed via Gris's heavy emphasis on non-verbal communication. If anything, the facial expressions that is elegantly shown on the face of the main protagonist is subtle like many of the other basic shapes utilized for this game setting, adds a level of nuance and depth. Big ups to Conrad Rosette, the artist who gave Gris its identity and personality. This man's art is beautiful and eclectic here, and if you see some of his work via his website, you'll quickly understand his style. Actually, it's his style that made him one of the co-founding members of Nomada Studios, and because of his artistic prowess, he makes his return in Nomada's next game. But back to Gris. As I stated before, I believe the utilization of colors in Gris deals with emotions. I may be wrong, but with each level segment and their respective colors, it represents some type of emotion someone feels when they're dealing with loss. For example, at the beginning of the protagonist's journey, it starts off with her just sitting in a space void of color, life, and perspective. But like a blank canvas, everything quickly goes from being very simplistic to building into something more complex throughout all of the animations, consistently compounding itself on top of each other, whether it's within the foreground or the background. But it's not only the stages and the storytelling that I find myself impressed with, it's also the creatures. For example, like how simple basic shapes like triangles are being used as birds, butterflies, and other stuff. And then all of a sudden, things forming into a fluid-like silhouette of a creature. Some innocent and some frightening. There was something else that I noticed, and it was like this light grainy filter that was placed over the cutscenes that made me feel like I was looking at, well, something's out of a children's book. But when the gameplay actually starts, man, everything just looks so clean and vibrant. Now I'm playing this on my PS5, and when I tell you it's like playing a painting, it's literally like playing a painting. This game looks beautiful. Gris is a side-scroller platforming game that has the player solving puzzles to unlock and progress to another area. So what do you have to work with? Initially, you start off with having the ability to move left and right, of course, with the addition of being able to jump. Along the way, you pick up different abilities to not only help the player through the environments, but to also solve puzzles which will test the player's sense of timing, visual perspectives on direction, and lastly, creativity. The reason for these obstacles is to acquire these small orbs that will grant entry and permits the main character to go to the next area represented by a different color palette. Also, there are these noticeable circle constructs known as mementos that you'll stumble across. These are hidden throughout every segment of the game, and if you are able to collect them all, your reward will be a secret cutscene accessible in the final stage once you find it. But as far as my criticisms goes when it comes to the gameplay, overall the controls are very easy to understand, responsive, and quite accessible to gamers who may be experienced or even just your casual gamers. The The sound design is punchy and brings to life the world of Gris. In a lot of ways, it kind of helps the player identify where and what things are. For example, the simple shapes imitating birds, the sound of nature hearing winds brush up against the surfaces of plant life in the forest, how sounds begin to feel to one that's underwater, the sounds of rocks being smashed, weight of creatures larger than you, and even the voice of the main character, all is of high quality and realism. A lot of thought and hard work can be heard, and I would suggest that if you don't have a surround sound system, to please plug in your headphones. Enjoy! The original music compositions was created and performed by a group of musicians and producers known as Berliners who hail from Barcelona, Spain. Berliners has composed many music projects such as albums and also has done original soundtracks for other games as well. One in particular is for the game that I'm currently playing known as Worldless, so expect a review from this beautiful game. But again, back to Gris. Atmospheric, moving, ethereal, peaceful, and vast is what I would describe the music for Gris. On songs like The Breed that have this constant swelling and release of sounds with sporadic notes evolving into this thoughtful and somber emotional transition can only be described in my opinion, well, as thoughtful. There are a lot of songs on this 27-track long soundtrack where you'll hear the strength of orchestral strings and some at the moment faint vocals baked in. Then on songs like Taboo where this hard to ignore electronic sound pierces throughout. But yeah, when playing this game, the soundtrack is befitting and perfectly marries the visuals, giving the player a pleasant experience. I'll put links to Berliners' official website to see their works and we can get a copy of the original soundtrack for yourself. Gris is a very authentic and unforgettable experience. It was definitely relaxing to play and actually surprised me a couple of times for how well each gaming mechanic was introduced. The story is abstract and could represent principles or something meaningful to each individual's perspective on who played this game. And as far as the presentation goes, the aesthetic of this game sets it apart from its contemporaries. Also, once you beat the game, you can easily access each section of the game in chapters, making it more accessible at the end. But overall, I recommend this game to anyone who appreciates art. Gris is now available for PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One and Series S and X, Nintendo Switch, Steam for Mac and PC, and Android and also Apple iOS for up to $20. I'll post links where you can pick up a copy for yourself in the description below. At the moment, Nomada Studios is now working on a follow-up title known as Never. Judging from the trailer, it seemingly maintains and advances their now familiar art style. We don't know what this game is about, however, from looking at this trailer, I am interested and will be watching this game's development as news for it is released over time. But until the next review, be safe out there, and peace y'all.
And don't forget to like and subscribe, hit up that notification bell, and I gotta go.